They left and you said nothing. That changed everything. When silence speaks, louder than any goodbye, you don't chase. You don't explain. You disappear with peace. There's something quietly devastating about walking away without a single word. No raised voice, no final message, just silence. When someone disrespects you, ignores you, manipulates you, betrays your worth, the instinct is to fight back, to explain, to plead for understanding. But the Stoic doesn't do that. He doesn't argue for his value. He doesn't chase after closure, because silence in the eyes of the Stoic is the final word. It's not coldness, it's clarity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And isn't that what explaining becomes? Sometimes a need to be heard by those who never truly listened in the first place. Think about it. Have you ever poured your heart into a message long, emotional, honest, only to be met with indifference or worse, silence? That moment teaches you something. Every word you speak to defend your worth is power handed over. Real power. Stoic power is quiet. It's not in convincing someone to treat you right. It's in walking away when they don't play. It says, you don't get to hear my voice anymore because you didn't value it when you had it. And that unsettles people, because they expect a reaction. They expect to be chased. But when you go silent, they lose the control they once held. The silence becomes their mirror. It forces them to sit with what they did, without distraction, without rescue, without the comfort of your words filling the void. And you reclaim your dignity. You regain your peace. You draw a line. Not with noise but with stillness. Seneca said, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. But sometimes it's even braver to leave without burning bridges, without slamming doors, simply by stepping back into your own strength. So I ask you, have you been explaining yourself to someone who already chose not to understand? If so, maybe it's time to try a different kind of answer. The kind that doesn't require sound. Let your silence be your boundary. Let it be your closure. Let it be your power. And if this resonates, share it in the comments. What role has silence played in your Stoic journey? We'd love to hear your reflection and your strength. They didn't expect you to leave so quietly, and yet it's in your quiet absence that the weight of your presence finally hits them. When words fall away, when noise disappears, what remains is space, and space demands reflection. The truth is, your absence says what your presence couldn't. It says, I am no longer available for disrespect. I will no longer give my energy where it's not valued. And that message, carried not by voice, but by void, is often louder than any confrontation could ever be. People notice silence not immediately but eventually. At first they might enjoy the distance, feel relieved even, but slowly, steadily, your stillness begins to echo. They check their phone. No message. They look around. You're not there. That's when discomfort sets in. That's when they begin to wonder. Not because you told them anything, but because you stopped telling them everything. That's when they start replaying what they said and what they didn't, what they did and what you tolerated. Silence has a way of forcing people to see what they tried to ignore. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And When someone is finally left alone with their own thoughts, with your absence wrapping around them like a mirror, they begin to confront the parts of themselves they tried to project onto you. This is the quiet correction Stoics practice, not through lecture, not through punishment, but through calm withdrawal. And what about you? What happens in that silence on your end? You begin to see too. You see how much energy you gave, how much explaining, fixing, forgiving you carried on your back just to keep things together. In your absence, you also gain clarity. You begin to rebuild self-respect. You realize, perhaps for the first time, that being unseen by them never meant you were invisible. It meant they weren't looking. So, can you feel it now? That calm power of being gone without burning anything down, without shouting a single word. That is presence. That is grace. That is Stoicism. Let it settle in. Let it shape how you show up moving forward. And if this reflection speaks to something you've lived through, share your moment in the comments. When did your silence finally get heard? And while others sit with your absence, you sit with something even more powerful, your own thoughts, that stillness you gave to the world. And in that stillness, something begins to rise. Not noise, not blame, not reaction, but truth. Because when everything else goes quiet, the one voice you can no longer ignore is your own. It's in these quiet hours that clarity takes shape. The fog of emotion begins to lift. The pressure to fix, to explain, to be understood fades. You begin to realize that much of your pain didn't come from what they did, but from what you continued to accept. That's the gift silence gives. It separates your feelings from your values. It helps you ask, am I hurt because of them or because I abandoned myself to keep them? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. And you begin to revoke. You pull your attention inward. You stop waiting for an apology. You stop craving closure. You stop trying to rearrange the outside world. And you begin repairing the foundation within. And sometimes the truths that surface aren't easy. They sound like they never truly saw me, or I stayed too long, or even I don't need to be understood. I need to be at peace. These realizations don't come in noise. They don't come in another conversation. They come in the space you finally created by not speaking. And you might ask, isn't silence lonely? Sometimes yes. But loneliness is not the enemy. Disconnection from yourself is in this quiet. You're not alone. You're reuniting with the part of you that was buried beneath over-explaining, over-fixing, over-giving. This is the work the Stoic does not in public debates but in private reflections. So, pause here. Just breathe. Let your silence be sacred. Let it be the mirror that shows you not what they did but who you are, without their noise. Have you felt this kind of silence before? Share what surfaced when you stopped explaining. Your story might be the reflection someone else needs. Once you've heard your own truth in silence, you stop needing theirs. That's when the chase for closure begins to feel hollow. You realize that no final conversation, no perfect explanation, no well-worded apology will undo the weight of being unheard for so long. What you needed wasn't clarity from them. It was courage from within. And your silence becomes that courage and action. We often fool ourselves into thinking we need closure to heal. That if we could just talk one more time, if we could just explain ourselves better, if they would just get it, we'd finally find peace. But that belief keeps you stuck. It places your healing in someone else's hands. And for the Stoic, nothing is more dangerous than letting your peace depend on the unpredictable nature of others. Epictetus taught, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. And there is no greater embodiment of Stoic clarity than choosing to walk away not with anger but with silence, not to prove a point but to protect your peace. Closure doesn't come from getting the last word. It comes from realizing you no longer need one. And maybe you've been there staring at the phone, rehearsing the message, drafting what you'd say if they finally listened. But let's be honest, that conversation rarely goes how you imagine. Instead of healing, it reopens the wound. Instead of peace, you're left with more questions. The people who truly care won't make you beg for clarity, and those who don't won't give it, no matter how much you plead. Silence then becomes the real ending. Not dramatic, not loud, just final. You reclaim your time, your dignity, your narrative. You stop waiting for them to validate your pain. You stop arguing for your own worth. You stop bleeding for someone who never brought bandages. So, let your silence speak what words cannot. Let it be the period at the end of a chapter you've outgrown. Let it be the act of radical self-respect that says, I don't need your permission to move on. And if this truth resonates with you, take a moment, reflect, then share below. How did you know it was time to stop explaining and start healing? And once you stop asking for answers, something else begins to happen. The truth reveals itself. Without your voice filling the space, without your explanations softening the discomfort, people show you exactly who they are. No more hiding behind apologies. No more dressing up intentions with empty words. When you go silent, their mask has no echo to play against, and so it slips. Words can be carefully chosen, rehearsed, manipulated, but behavior that's raw, that's real. And when there's no longer a script to respond to, no longer a performance to maintain, the performance ends, and what's left is character. Silence exposes what words try to cover. That's why most people fear it, because they can control a conversation. They can spin it, shape it, charm their way through it, but they cannot control the mirror that silence becomes. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. It's a reminder that words, no matter how noble, mean little without matching action. And when you choose to go silent, you give people the space to act. And in that space, the truth steps forward. You might notice who checks in when you go quiet and who disappears, who grows anxious when they can't provoke a reaction and who respects your boundary, who asks, are you okay? Not because you posted something but because they sense the shift. The ones who genuinely care reach. The ones who only fed off your attention fade. It's not about testing people. It's about no longer interfering with the lesson. Your silence gives room for reality to speak loudly, clearly, undeniably. And that clarity, it can be painful, but it's also freeing. Because now you're not confused by promises. You're guided by patterns. You're not held hostage by apologies. You're anchored in truth. So, the next time you feel that urge to speak just to fill the silence, pause. Just pause. Let things unfold. Let people show you, not tell you. Let their actions reveal what their words could never prove. And if you've ever been in that space where silence opened your eyes, share it. How did your quiet shift what you saw? Once you've seen the truth in someone's actions, you no longer need to argue with their words. The lesson has already arrived, not through confrontation, but through observation. And this is where the most powerful shift takes place. You stop chasing clarity. You stop defending your position. You stop engaging in battles that never had a winner. Instead, you detach calmly, quietly, and in that detachment you teach a lesson far deeper than any explanation ever could. People expect noise. They expect you to protest, to fight, to plead. That's the emotional pattern they know how to navigate. But when you walk away in silence, when you don't scream, don't beg, don't justify, it disrupts their entire dynamic. Suddenly, they're left alone with the consequences of their behavior. With no distraction, no escape, just your absence echoing where your energy used to be. Seneca once said, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. But to live without reacting, to walk away, without needing to be right, that requires an even greater kind of strength. Because detachment is not the absence of care. It's the presence of self-respect. It's choosing peace over pride. It's saying, and here's the truth most people avoid. People rarely change because you explain things well. They change, if ever, when they feel the loss. When your silence removes the safety net. When they realize they no longer have access to your peace. That's when growth becomes possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. Because you chose to stop feeding the cycle. But let's be clear. This isn't about punishing them. It's about protecting you. It's about choosing not to bleed in front of people who were never willing to stop the cut. It's about stepping out of a pattern you were never meant to survive in. And in doing so, you reclaim something sacred, your stillness. So ask yourself, where have you been over-explaining? Instead of detaching? Where have you been offering noise when silence would have said it all? If this lands with you, let us know in the comments. What have you learned from letting go? Not in anger, but in calm, stoic clarity. When you no longer need to react, you reclaim something priceless, your energy. That's the hidden wisdom inside stoic silence. It's not about avoiding conflict. It's about choosing where your energy flows and where it no longer belongs. Because not everything deserves a reaction. Not everyone earns your emotional investment. Sometimes the most powerful decision you can make is to do nothing and let stillness protect what's sacred inside you. Every time you pause, instead of explode, reflect instead of respond, breathe instead of break. This is the foundation of inner power. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And in today's world where noise is constant and opinions are loud, mastering Yourself begins with choosing silence. That's why Stoic silence is never passive. It's active restraint. It's the deliberate choice to conserve energy for what actually matters. Not to suppress emotion but to transmute it. Not to avoid life but to navigate it with control. Because discipline isn't about being rigid. It's about being rooted, grounded enough not to be shaken by every wave of chaos around you. And the more you practice this silence, the more it becomes second nature. You'll find yourself no longer triggered by things that once disturbed your peace. You'll spend less time explaining yourself and more time understanding yourself. That's the real transformation. That's the quiet strength of Stoicism in motion. So, if you're tired of the noise, if you're exhausted from giving your energy to the wrong things, try this. Pull back. Go quiet, not in fear and power. Let your silence become your training ground. And when you speak again, do so with clarity, intention, and calm. Before we go, let this reminder stay with you. He who angers you. If this message resonated with you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a reflection like this. And if you've used silence to rebuild your energy or discipline, share your experience in the comments below. We read everyone. And now, breathe. Let this truth settle in. Walk forward. Not louder, but lighter. Stay grounded. Stay clear.